Welcome, welcome everyone to the April Electoral Area Services Committee meeting. I'd call the meeting to order, and first thing I'd like to do is say that this past week we've lost our dear friend and colleague Terry Raymond, long-term fixture here at the regional district. Terry wasn't just a friend to all of us, but he was a fierce advocate for Boston Bar and for the regional government in general. Terry held nothing back in his concern and ensuring that Boston Bar's interests were very well presented, and especially took note of making sure that the First Nations people were front and center at our table. When I showed up here about a century ago, Terry took very kind care of me and made sure that he coached me along and kept me from blowing up any more often than necessary. So I always certainly indebted to Terry, and he was a genuine friend to all of us, and we're all going to very much miss him in the future. So, good. Then with that, I think I'll turn things back to our CAO.
Thank you, Chair Dickey. So item 3 on the agenda is your report on the Regional and Corporate Services Committee meeting from this morning.
Okay, thank you. This morning meeting was quite quiet. We did have a delegation from some people. They are called the British Columbia Social Procurement Initiative, and they made a nice presentation to us. Had an interesting explanation on how many local governments in British Columbia have banded together to try and improve on the awarding of government work contracts. Brax asked that staff would look into this further and report back to us. Otherwise, there wasn't a lot of discussion that was generated through the agenda. So I will turn things back to Ms. Kinnaman.
Thank you. So looking for approval of the agenda, and late items.
Move Director Adams. Oh, and pardon me, I do need to welcome Diane Johnson here, who's going to take Terry's place for the rest of this term. Diane's a long-time resident of Boston Bar and will do a very capable job of representing that community. So welcome, Diane. Yeah, and looking for approval of the agenda, move Director Adamson, second Director Dixon. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, contrary, motion carries.
Item 5.1 is a delegation for the Agricultural Land Commission application, proposed 3-lot subdivision at 1095 Columbia Valley Road in Electoral Area H. I understand we have a presenter on the line.
Good. Welcome.
Yes, thank you very much. Thank you for allowing me the opportunity to speak before everyone this afternoon on the proposal. I'm not able to see, but there should be just a small PowerPoint presentation that goes with this, basically just to show the site plan for everybody to reference during this presentation. My name is Dylan Anderson. I'm with OTG Developments. We're the agent for the owner of the subject property located at 1095 Columbia Valley Road. So on March 10th, 2022, at the previous EASC meeting, it was voted that the FERD EASC recommend that the FERD board not recommend the application be forwarded to the Agricultural Land Commission. This proposal, or this motion rather, prompted me to request that the application be pulled from the subsequent board agenda that night to allow me to come before the EASC another time as a delegation, hopefully provide a little bit of additional information on the proposal. As I did not feel that the conversation at that March 10th meeting was comprehensive enough to provide the EASC or the board an overall understanding of the application, which I'll get to shortly. So as staff noted in the report, the property owner is seeking to subdivide the property into 3 lots following the existing boundaries, which have already been established by Columbia Valley Road running through the property. The fragmented nature of the property makes for an awkward situation when it comes to farming a lot, as a farmer would need to then drive their equipment from each piece. I don't know if you can see, but so each of those pink lines represents the, well, proposed lots, but essentially the existing pieces which have already been, as I said, established by Columbia Valley Road running through. And then the green areas are the farmable area on proposed lot 3, just for reference, because the center of that lot is actually quite encumbered by geotechnical area. So as I was saying, the fragmented nature of this property makes it awkward to farm. You would need to essentially go from lot 1, following that to lot 2, and then go all the way around to Cossacre Road if you wish to farm the upslope portion there, that 3.0 hectare area. And that's a challenge, obviously, for farming. Additionally, the owner has 3 grandchildren and hopes to leave each one with their own piece. So to limit the impact of farmable area on each of these lots, the owner agreed to enter into a restrictive covenant, which would limit the current or future owners from where they could build their house. Accordingly, that's the blue area on the plan there. And with respect to proposed lot 3, we placed the proposed home site on the slope to hopefully allow for as much farmable area as possible. So the purpose for the delegation today, as I mentioned, was to just kind of hopefully provide a little bit more comprehensive discussion than what was noted at the EASC meeting. It was noted by Director Dixon at that meeting. She referenced OCP section 5.1.22, which indeed states that subdivision agricultural areas shall be limited to lots measuring 4 hectares in area. And indeed, as a result of the road, those proposed lots 1 and 2 are in fact smaller than 4 hectares. However, this limitation, as I mentioned, is due to the road. And one of the lots, in fact, is greater than 4 hectares. However, this was the only policy referenced at that meeting in the negative for the proposal. And the additional policies which actually support subdivision were not referenced. And so I felt that, just to provide a full discussion and give the applicant sort of their best chance on this file, I needed to bring something forward to hopefully shine some additional light on that. Now, the OCP references section 5.1.20, which says new parcels created by subdivision within agricultural areas shall be configured to maximize agricultural sustainability and minimize potential conflicts between farm and non-farm uses. Of course, that through subdivision would be maintained through any kind of buffers that are necessary between the houses and the agricultural areas or what have you. But more importantly, section 5.1.21 says the regional board will support applications for subdivision in agricultural areas, including subdivisions of parcels split by a road in the Columbia Valley, where lot lines would follow roads and topographic barriers, or B, proposed subdivision will not result in conflicts with agriculture or diminish agricultural potential, provided that new configuration of parcels does not impede the use of agricultural machinery. So this subdivision addresses how it will preserve farmlands by offering restrictive covenants to limit the maximum allowable home plate area, and it does not further impede the use of agricultural machinery outside the existing barrier of the public road, which divides the property. So there's this, there's these 2 pieces within the OCP which actually support subdivision, and further the zoning bylaw as well notes that for the minimum parcel size of RAG zones is 4 hectares. However, the zoning bylaw notes that that section shall not apply, and referencing 3.6.3, where the parcel of land is 1, physically separated into 2 or more lots, separated by pieces of a utility right-of-way, at least 60 meters, a public road, i.e. Columbia Valley Road, by a canal or by a railway. And the second piece there speaks to riparian areas, which isn't applicable in this situation. It notes that the proposed lots, the zoning bylaw rather, notes that proposed lots separated into 3 pieces by Columbia Valley Road and are each exceeding the 2,000 square meter minimum, which that 3.6.3 provision notes. And finally, as noted in the report, this proposal was supported by Manager of Planning, the Director of Planning and Development, Chief Financial Officer, and the Chief Administrative Officer. So appreciate the opportunity to speak. I just, like I said, I felt like the sort of pros were not mentioned at the previous meeting, and therefore I felt that it bared mentioning. But if anybody has any questions, I'm here to answer any, if any.
Okay, good. Thank you, Mr. Anderson. So I'll open it up to discussion to directors. Director Dixon, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And thank you, Mr. Anderson, for presenting today. I do have a couple questions, if I may.
Please.
So you've mentioned in the application as well as today, one of the things I read that as it, I guess my first question is, does the owner live there currently? Does he reside on the property?
The owner is, I believe he leases the residence, but he operates a shop out of where the existing residential parcel is, if I'm not mistaken. I'd have to double check on that.
Okay. And I believe this property probably came up for sale a few years ago from the former owner. So one of the things I read was that as it is, there's little incentive to farm. And so I wonder if you can expand on that a little bit, because to me, when I look at especially where the residence already is one of the smaller lots. If there was an interest in farming, I'm not understanding why there's no incentive to farm as it is right now.
Like I mentioned, it certainly one could farm these pieces as one single farm operation. But by subdividing them, it actually allows for sort of each individual farm or 3 individual farms to come about or to farm those pieces. Theoretically, you could have, a leased portion of the downslope of the proposed lot 3, but just like with having Cossicker Road and the upslope portion of that property so far away from the rest of it, it makes for an awkward situation for farming the whole thing as one operation. So the idea is that afford the opportunity for smaller agriculture to occur, hobby farming or a farmer that otherwise wouldn't be able to purchase a larger farm operation, give them the chance to take a kick at farming on one of these smaller pieces.
So you mentioned that, if I may, Mr. Chair, sorry, you mentioned that these 3 pieces are for his grandchildren. Or are they currently old enough to farm? Like, and maybe you can't answer that. I'm just kind of curious if if this if we're talking about something that's expected to happen relatively soon.
I believe they're sort of middle school age, if I'm not mistaken. Again, I'd have to double check that. Like, yeah, but my understanding is that the owner does have a background in agriculture, and it sort of runs in the family to a certain degree. And so, his hope was that through this piece, he could hopefully pass that down to his grandchildren.
And so I know that right now the agricultural land does allow a supplementary building on large pieces of property. And I did mention when this was brought forward the other time that is another option if there was some need to help with farm operations.
Yeah, I'd have to double check the legislation. I'm not sure if there is any limitation on where that secondary residence could be built. For example, I don't know if it would allow, and maybe this is something to look into as well, but I'm not sure if the secondary residence would be able to be on one of those secondary parcels, or if it would have to be tied sort of within a certain proximity to the home site. I'm not sure off the top of my head.
Fair enough. I don't know. And so at this time, is there a specific farming plan? Or, I mean, I've read the package and I know some of the things that were mentioned in there. I'm just not wondering if you're aware of anything on that.
No, not apart from, there was some mention of hopefully providing some kind of, farm stand or something along those lines, whereby, some of the products that are grown in the area and on on one of these parcels is sold on the site. But apart from that, there's no distinct plan for each respective parcel. But I'm sure that planning would get more deeper into place once there's some assurances on the application.
Thank you.
Good. Thank you, Director Dixon. Directors, any other discussion? Hearing none, we'll thank Mr. Anderson for his delegation report, and we'll deal with this item a little further along in our agenda.
Thank you very much.
And we'll turn things over to our CAO.
Thank you, Chair Dickey. So item 5.2 is emergency response work update from our staff member, Sterling Chan.
Welcome, Sterling.
Good afternoon. Please bear with me for 1 second. I'm just going to share my screen. Okay. Is this working for everyone?
I think it's looking good. Thank you.
All right, great. So good afternoon, committee members. My name is Sterling Chan, for those who don't know me. I'm the manager of engineering at the Fraser Valley Regional District. And this presentation is on my work as the EOC Operations Section Chief during this past fall's Atmospheric River event. So the EOC Operations Section, we completed.
We just lost the audio, Sterling.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'll try and speak more directly to my microphone. So during the EOC event,
There we go. That's better.
During the EOC event, the operations section conducted a number of hydrotechnical assessments on various creeks and rivers. That
we lost your so sound basically.
Oh, sorry.
There we go. Sterling, your audio is coming and going on us.
Oh, I'm sorry, guys. My apologies. I'll try and speak directly into the mic, but if it doesn't work, then we'll have to come up with another solution. So the EOC operations section, we conducted a number of hydrotechnical assessments on various creeks and rivers across the FERD's electoral areas. These assessments were conducted by hydrotechnical engineers and geoscientists. And so this,
Sterling,
yes,
may I
yes.
make a suggestion? You've just cut out again. I wonder if another option would be for you to dial in to the meeting, and then that way you could just talk through the presentation, because it seems like the audio on your computer device is just not working.
Certainly. Do you think maybe we could push my presentation back an item or two in the agenda while we sort out the dialing in?
I can't really answer the question that you just posed because I couldn't hear it.
Yeah, what Sterling is suggesting is the presentation be put back further into the agenda so that he can get things sorted out.
I think we can accommodate that, sure.
All right, thank you.
We'll just move on to the next item. Sorry, Sterling.
Yeah, no problem.
So the next item on the agenda, it would be 6.1, which is the draft Electoral Area Services Committee meeting minutes of March 10th, 2022.
Moved Director Stobart, second Director Johnson. Thank you. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, contrary, motion carries.
Next is 7.1. We have election staff remuneration rates for the 2022 general local elections. There is a motion for your consideration.
Okay, looking for a motion. Move Director Adamson, second Director Angar. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, contrary, motion carries.
8.1, we have a 2022 grant and aid request for the Dudney Elementary School PAC in Electoral Area G.
Move Director Stobart, second Director Bales. Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor, contrary, motion carries.
8.2 is a 2022 grant and aid request for the Boston Bar Community Charities Association in Electoral Area A.
Good. For a motion, perhaps Director Johnson would like to move. Thank you. Second Director Adamson. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, contrary, motion carries.
8.3 is the 2022 grant and aid request for actively creating an exceptional society in Electoral Area C.
Motion, Director Bales, second, Director Adamson. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? Contrary, motion carries.
8.4 is the Community Works Funds reallocation options. There is a motion for your consideration with a couple of options.
Thank you, Ms. Kinnaman. So taking everyone back to our discussion during the budgeting process. So the first issue has to do with emergency management budget. And the first option is that we share amongst electoral areas based on population and adjustments, as we talked about before, with community works funds, or we divide equally among the electoral areas. So would someone like to make a motion?
Davidson,
Director Davidson.
moving option 1.
Director Davidson moves option 1. And do we have a seconder? Second, Director Stobart. Discussion.
Davidson.
Go ahead, Director Davidson.
Yeah, thank you very much, staff, for the comprehensive report that goes along with this. Given that in this context, that the community works funds are allocated based on population, it's only fair and reasonable that they be reallocated based on population, in my mind, if I was to summarize it. So that's why I support option 1. The upcoming thing will be a different matter, but it's a lower dollar value. We would speak to that on the back half of this overall item on the agenda. Thank you.
Good. Thank you, Director Davidson. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor? Contrary? Motion's carried. And that would take us to the second half of this agenda item, which appears
Could
we've
we
lost.
perhaps put it back up on the screen for the second? There we go. Thanks.
Thank you. So this is in regard to the electoral area sewer gap analysis. And I believe that was a $50,000 cost. And there are two options presented to us. One being that the first one being that the cost of the report is divided equally amongst the A's, or option 2, that the cost of the report is allocated amongst the electoral areas based on population. So we're looking for a motion.
Davidson,
Go ahead, Director Davidson.
moving option 1.
Move option 1 that to be divided equally amongst electoral areas. Is there a seconder? Move a second, Director Stobart. Discussion.
Davidson.
Go ahead, Director Davidson.
So thank you, Chair. So unlike the first half of this one, I'm very mindful of the recent connectivity study that, regardless of need amongst the electoral areas, was nonetheless divided equally amongst the electoral areas. So in my mind, it's only fit and proper that while there's no need for this in area F, that we just divide it equally and move on. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Director Davidson. Any further discussion on this motion? Hearing none. All those in favor? Contrary? Motion carries. Thank you. I'll turn back to Ms. Kinnaman.
Thank you, Chair Dickey. So item 9.1 is the FDRD electoral area sanitary sewer gap analysis policy update. There is a motion for your consideration.
For motion. Move Director Adamson, second Director Dixon. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor? Contrary, motion carries.
Item 10.1 is the Agricultural Land Commission application for the proposed 3-lot subdivision at 1095 Columbia Valley Road in electoral area H. There is a motion for your consideration.
Good, thank you. So this is the subject item to the delegation we just heard. They're looking for a motion.
Dixon. So in spite of what I've just heard, I'd like to move to refuse this application.
Okay, Director Dixon moves to refuse. We're looking for a seconder. Move second, Director Adamson. Discussion.
Just a little further, I do thank the developer for answering some questions today. And I'm well aware that it does make part of the planning and the bylaws and things like that. However, I've also spoken with many of the people up there, and the concerns that are up there are covering agricultural land with buildings, wells, septic systems. Is there enough water? Those type of things, and I'm just listening in. It doesn't, as far as farming plan and things like that. I know some of those things take time. However, certainly in this kind of states that once we start chopping up land into small parcels, they're gone. So that those are my reasons for refusing this, or at least putting that motion forward.
Okay, thank you, Director Dixon. Any further discussion? Hearing none, and on the motion to refuse, all those in favor? Contrary? Motion carries.
Item 10.2 is Development Variance Permit 2022-02 to reduce side setbacks at Lot 50-46484 Chilliwack Lake Road in Electoral Area E.
Okay, looking for a motion.
So moved. Angar?
Move Director Angar, second. Second, Director Dixon. Discussion.
Yes, please, Chair.
Yeah, go ahead, Director Angar.
The thing that comes to mind, I'm leaning towards option one of taking staff's recommendation on this, and which would allow the reduced side setbacks. But I'm wondering. I've been hearing for some time the fire department's issue with lack of water pressure on site in the Chilliwack River Valley estates, and I'm wondering if this is an opportunity to somehow make a dent in that issue ongoing. Last summer, I think the summer before, the fire department has reiterated to me, and again in this report, they're saying that lack of water pressure is a potential safety issue. So in allowing these reduced setbacks, is there an opportunity through you to staff to get some feedback on this, if there might be some way we could bundle these two together, or perhaps at a later date revisit the water issue?
Okay, thank you, Director Angar. Ms. Kinnaman, we might send this in the direction of.
I think Mr. Islam is on the line. Perhaps he could speak to this item.
Okay, thank you. Just give Mr. Islam a chance to get up the technology up to speed here.
Yep.
There we go.
Through Mr. Chair. I believe in the Chilliwack River Valley, there's the aquifers that are there. There's not been a whole lot of research done on those, but based on the geological information we have, or hydrological information we have from our own well, I believe there are areas that we can get some information, and I think this is something that we need to work with province.
Good. Thank you, Mr. Islam. Director Angar.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Islam. I'm just wondering then, can we formally go after the province and put this in our workload to see what we can make, if we can make changes for the folks there?
My understanding is we have to go through the front counter to initiate any conversation with the province. So we, as staff, we can just inquire this at this point and then see where it goes, and then we can come back and have a discussion with you or to the East as a general.
Well, that would be excellent. Much appreciated. Let's please do that. And in that case, I'll move option number 1 to reduce the setbacks.
Good, thank you, Director Engar. We've already got a seconder, don't we?
Yes, Chair. Dickey,
Yeah.
I think that was what was already moved and on the floor.
Yeah, thank you. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor? Contrary, motion carries.
Next item is 10.3. We have development variance permit 2022-03 for 10356 Royalwood Boulevard in Electoral Area D.
Okay, looking for a motion. Move Director Stobart. Second Director Adamson. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? Contrary, motion carries.
10.4, we have development variance permit 2022-04 to reduce the exterior side lot line setback for the construction of an addition to an existing dwelling at 43906 Eric Place Road in Electoral Area C.
Okay, looking for a motion. Move Director Bales. Second Director Stobart. Any discussion?
I would just like to ask Amy, I'm not sure about the pronunciation of her last name. If there's been any resident comment. I didn't see any.
Okay, thank you, Director Bales. Staff, do we have
I
any?
think we'll put it through actually to Graham Daniluz, the Director of Planning and Development.
I think you're muted perhaps, Mr. Downs. There we go.
Thanks, Director Dickey. We've not received any comment from neighbors just yet. Following the committee meeting, we will send out mail out referrals to properties within a 30-meter radius, and any input would be brought to the board.
Okay. I have I don't have a comment on it other than no comment. So I guess that's it.
Good, thank you, Director Bales. So the neighbors will be given an opportunity to comment, and we'll receive those comments prior to a final decision at the board level. So any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? Contrary, motion carries.
10.5 is zoning amendment application for 10708 Farms Road in Electoral Area F to allow a cannabis production facility. There is a motion for your consideration.
Move Davidson.
Director Davidson moves. Second, Director Adamson, discussion.
Davidson.
Go ahead, Director Davidson.
Yeah, I just want to say that I'm quite happy to see something like this go through this process. When we, a couple of years ago now, it seems like, changed the zoning regulations in Area F to not allow cannabis production. The intent was never to prohibit it. It was outright. It was basically to make applicants go through a public process and determine the level of community support for it on a case-by-case basis. This one particular application is a bit more complicated in that they've already built some of the facility. Unfortunately, their permits have expired, so that's kind of an overlay of complexity. But nonetheless, by all means, it should go forward to public hearing, and community feedback on this one is going to drive my support for it more than anything else. So yes, I support the application. Thank you.
Good.
The motion, I should say.
Yep. Thank you, Director Davidson. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor? Contrary, motion carries.
10.6, we have Cultus Lake Park Board request to implement changes to the Cultus Lake Park zoning bylaw number 1375. There is a motion for your consideration.
Okay, looking for a motion. Normally you'd move.
Okay, I'll move the motion.
Okay, move Director Dixon, second Director Stobart, discussion, Director Dixon.
If I may, thank you. After the last meeting, it was my understanding that FERD staff would meet with the Cultus Lake Park Board to discuss what their requests were and what they were hoping. And I just was looking for an update if that, where we're at with that.
Okay. Ms. Kinnaman?
Sure. I think we can turn that over to Graham Daniluz or perhaps Hasib Nadvi.
Yes, indeed. We had a meeting scheduled with the Cultus Lake Park CAO, Joe Lamb. Unfortunately, we had to cancel that meeting because of absence, my absence. We've got it rescheduled for next week. And so we'd be pleased to follow up with Director Dixon after our meeting with Cultus Lake Park staff early next week.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Daniluz. Director Dixon.
So thank you for that. I'm not quite sure how to move this then. And so I guess it will depend how this project is going to be financed, whether it's just Area H or because what I want to say, if I'm certainly prepared to address the height issue through funding from Area H, but if other things want to be added on, then those maybe would have to go to the onto the staff work plan, unless there's an opportunity for other sources of funding. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so it's a bit up in the air because of this meeting being delayed. So there will be an opportunity to defer to the next month, or perhaps agree to cover the financing of part of the project and not the other part. Would that be a fair analysis, Mr. Daniluz?
Yes, it would, Chair. Yes, what I could offer is that we'll follow up with Director Dixon following our meeting with Cultus Lake Park representatives, and I believe for the board meeting this month, Director Dixon might have the complete picture that you're looking for.
Okay, that's perfect.
Okay, good. Thank you, Director Dixon. Thank you, Mr. Daniluz. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor? Contrary, the motion carries.
10.7 is Electoral Area C Official Community Plan Scope and Strategy. This motion for your consideration.
Okay, looking for a motion. Moved Director Adamson, second Director Angar. Any discussion?
The residents of the area would like a tree cutting bylaw, among other things. Residents of Harrison Lane would like more tree cutting in their area prohibited, and so would not like to have extra homes. And yeah.
So this is very early in the official community plan process.
Yeah.
And those are issues that would likely come up as part of the future part of the process. I think Director Bales.
Yeah.
Certainly those are items that would be talked about within the community.
Yep.
Okay, thank you. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor? Contrary, the motion carries.
10.8 is the Fraser Valley Regional District Zoning Bylaw number 1638.
Okay, looking for motion. Director Adamson moves, second Director Stobart. Any discussion? Like to thank staff. This has been a very big project. We've been talking about it for a long time, and nice to see it coming to fruition. It's going to make everybody's life much simpler, not only our staff, but people that deal with our planning department on an ongoing basis, our builders, our developers. So I'd like to thank you very much for getting this work done. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? Contrary, motion carries.
10.9 is a special event permit for the Thirsty Elk Trail Race in Electoral Area E.
So moved.
Move Director Angar, second Director Adamson. Any discussion?
Yes, please, Chair.
Go ahead, Director Angar.
Yeah, I think this would be a great event for the community and very welcome to see the runners come through our area. My knees kind of hurt just thinking of them coming down Elk Mountain. It's going to be a real grind. The one thing I do know is after speaking with the manager of the trailer park campground in Slessie Park today, that he has been in conversation with these folks directly, and this is a few weeks back, and understood it would be 100 or so participants. So if it turns out to be considerably more than that, it will put a strain on the Slessie Park community with the narrow roads out here. And him and I had a good discussion around where the event should end rather than what they have on the maps. So there's some changes that could be made, and he's asked me to attend with the applicant when they get together, and we can walk the area and see what will work best. But the main challenge is the shuttle buses and where they should park, and he feels they should park and stay and make their end at the Chilliwack River campground, rather than having it down on the maps to the west, rather on the maps where they have shown, which really doesn't have a good concrete easement to Auburn Road. So I know this is probably not familiar territory to most people that are hearing this, but it's something that we just need to tie down a little bit better, and hopefully we can do that over the next little while. So I do support the project, and I'm confident that we could come to the best way and safest way for the community to make that happen.
Good. Thank you, Director Angar. Nice to see our outdoor recreation assets being enjoyed and utilized. Any other discussion? Director Dixon, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm just wondering if Director Angar is going to sign himself up for this. But actually, a comment that I had was on under the staff report. I guess it is under the discussion. It says that the organizer must submit the following items to the Columbia Valley Fire Service for approval. Is the Columbia Valley Fire Department involved in this as well, or is it the Chilliwack River Valley?
I suspect through the chair to Director Dixon, I suspect that was probably just a typo.
Right. Okay. Yeah, I meant to actually tell you ahead of time, but I thought since I saw it, I would let you know.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good. Thank you, Director Dixon. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? Contrary, motion carries.
Item 11.1.1 is the Federal Disaster Financial Assistance Arrangement Review. It is an information item. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Any discussion? Nice to see our emergency results being looked after. Moving forward, Ms. Kinnaman.
11.1.2 is the Volunteer Fire Department's 2021 statistics. Again, some useful information for directors.
Okay, any discussion, directors?
Dixon.
Go ahead, Director Dixon.
Just want to thanks for these stats. So I think so. We're in 11.1.12.
Yeah, volunteer fire.
I'm just wondering if I noticed Cultus Lake Fire Department wasn't on the list, and I do understand that they go through the park board, but part of Cultus Lake Fire Department is part of Area H as well. And I'm just wondering if it's possible at some point to get some of those stats too.
Through the chair to Director Dixon, we can certainly request them.
Good. Thank you, Director Dixon. Any other discussion? Director Stober, go ahead.
Yeah, also thanks for the stats. And once again, we've got well over 1,100 calls for our volunteers here. So I don't know, it just keeps increasing every year. So.
Yeah, thank you, Director Stobart. Some very busy volunteer firefighters. Any other discussion? Hearing none, we'll turn things back to Ms. Kinnaman.
Thank you, Chair Dickey. So 11.1.3 is deployment of volunteer fire departments for out-of-region wildfire events. There's a motion for your consideration.
Okay, the motion. Move Director Stowart, second Director Dixon. Any discussion?
Davidson,
Go ahead, Director Davidson.
So I'm looking at the last sentence of the motion, and what I'm wondering about is, in the case of North Fraser, where there are essentially 3 electoral area directors involved, what's the expected process in that scenario? Question through to staff, through you, Chair. Thank you.
Sure. Through the chair to Director Davidson. Typically, the way that this process works is the chief receives the request. They are expected to respond rather quickly, and that request comes in to me, and I make the call to the affected electoral area director. So in the case of North Fraser, I would make 3 calls seeking your input on whether or not the teams should go out. The process has worked quite well in the past. I'm not aware of any challenges that we've had with the North Fraser Fire Department in getting that permission. The fire departments that typically put forward these teams, they've got adequate resources behind them to support the community in their absence, and as well as mutual aid arrangements so that in the event there was a larger scale fire in the area while that team was away, they had that backup. So as CAO, I'm confident of this process, but happy to entertain alternate wording if you're uncomfortable with the motion.
Thank you, Ms. Kinnaman. So if there's established process in place, the things that go to my mind are all the bizarre what if scenarios. For example, if only 2 of the 3 electoral area directors are available and one's on holiday or away or unreachable for whatever reason, what sort of process, staff would do. So, but I'll ride on top of your wave of confidence and then happily support the motion as worded. I don't think there's a reason to get into it in any further detail. Thank you.
Good. Thank you, Director Davidson. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? Contrary, motion carries.
12.1 is the first quarter update for 2022.
Okay. Any discussion, directors, on the update? Thank you, staff. It's like a very comprehensive summary. It's good to remind me of some of the things that are going on. So sure appreciate it. Otherwise, we will turn things back to Ms. Kim.
Thank you. So 12.2 is also an information item. It's the results of the 2021 Atmospheric River Response Public Survey. Some useful information in that survey, certainly recommendations that staff were already working on, but we're happy to answer any questions or entertain discussion.
Okay. Directors, any discussion on the survey? A lot of interesting information that I picked up. Our area wasn't that involved in the emergency event, but I learned a lot through the survey. And we will go back to RC. Oh, Director Davidson, please go ahead.
Right. I was just going to, I can see this is another important document provided input and providing some input into our next steps forward. At some point, when it works for staff, I would like to get a better understanding of what our sort of action plan is. We put this together along with the action review and the auditor's report in the past, put it all together and what settles out into what order. Some insight to that at some point in the future would be very useful to me. Thank you.
Good. Thank you, Director Davidson. This is an information item, so no motions needed. I'm wondering if we should bring Mr. Chan back in.
Good point. Hopefully he has, I don't know if we've got him on the line still or if we've heard. Right.
There's Mr.
There we go.
Chan.
All right, let's try this again. Can everybody hear me okay?
Sounds 100% so far.
All right, great. Let's begin. I'll assume that the presentation that I gave at the start, nobody heard it, so I'll start from the top. So good afternoon, committee. For those who don't know me, my name is Sterling Chan. I'm the manager of engineering at the Fraser Valley Regional District, and this presentation is on my work as the section chief of our EOC operation section in this past fall's atmospheric river event. So the EOC operation section, we were responsible for conducting the assessments on the various creeks that were impacted by the flooding. In total, we had 27 creeks that across the region that were assessed by either our hydrotechnical engineers or geoscientists. So this map of our region right here that shows the creeks that we had assessed. As you can see, the impacts were quite wide.
Sorry, Mr. Chan, we're not seeing that on the, you might be sharing the wrong screen. We're not seeing any map right now.
Oh, is it not? Is it not?
Slides have been moved ahead.
The slides have not moved ahead. Okay. Okay. Do you see a slide now?
It's looking great.
Okay. So yeah, this slide shows the various creeks that we conducted assessments on across the region. As you can see, the work was quite spread across our electoral areas.
We have some complicated hydrogeology. Wow.
Sorry, bear with me 1 second here. Okay. So following these assessments, we received funding from EMBC to conduct a number of emergency response projects. In total, we completed 10 of these emergency response projects with an additional 2 EMBC funded projects, which are outstanding. So this next map here, this shows the location of those projects. Let me know that you're seeing the next map in the slide.
Yeah, no,
in the
that was
presentation.
good. Thank you.
Okay, great. So yeah, these were the projects that we undertook, and I'll go through a couple of the project highlights to share with the committee. So the first project I'd like to share is Frost Creek. So this is a creek in Electoral Area H. It flows into the south end of Cultus Lake. And along the length of this creek, the SBRD owns and maintains about 1 kilometer of dike. In addition, we have 2 sediment and debris basins. So the photo on the left is of our middle debris basin. And this was taken in early 2021 before the event. And the photo on the right shows that same location immediately following the first atmospheric river. So you can see that there's a significant amount of debris that was deposited. And in addition, we lost quite a bit of the freeboard within our creek. So you can see the dike on the opposite side of the creek, and you can see how much smaller it looks in that second photo. So this next photo, this is actually of one of our Lindell Beach residents. He was taking us for a tour. This picture is, I think, at about 10 or 11 o'clock at night. And what had happened with all that material that deposited in the creek is late one night, we discovered, the residents actually discovered and reported to us a significant amount of seepage that was coming through the dike. So we actually had to conduct an emergency assessment in the middle of the night, and the engineers were on site from, I think, about 10 p.m. till about 2 a.m. looking at all this water that came through the dike. The following morning, following the engineer's recommendation, we began bailing material from the creek. So this is our contractor working down at the mouth of Frost Creek, bailing out sediment that is basically plugging up the mouth. In addition to all the sediment that came down, there were also quite a few large log jams that came down. So this photo is just of our contractor cleaning out one of the log jams that came out. And this photo is just above our upper sediment basin. once we got through the, we'll say the very urgent works, we were able to work in a bit of a more controlled manner, let's say. So this photo is of our metal sediment basin, and here you can see that we're employing more of the best management practices that you would normally see with like a sediment removal project. You can see that on the right-hand side, we're excavating the channel, but we have all the sediment-laden water isolated. And then on the left-hand side, you can see the clear water running through, and it's not being impacted by our work. This photo is of one of our staff members, Mike Neal, who is working on this project. He's standing in front of one of, I believe, 7 stockpiles of material that were removed from the creek. I'm going to throw some numbers at you. From our upper sediment basin, we removed 30,000 cubic meters of sediment, and from our lower section of the creek, we removed 7,000 cubic meters of material. So again, that's 30,000 and 7,000. Our normal sediment management program on this creek is about 2,000 cubic meters every second year. So just to contextualize that, this is considerably more than we would ever normally have to deal with. Next project highlight is Wilson Road. We're not going to get too much into this one, but I've just got a before and after photo of the job site. So the photo on the left shows basically, on the right-hand side of that photo shows where our dike left off, and you can see the homes that were impacted by the floodwaters. And then the photo on the right, you'll see what that site looked like after our emergency response work. Couple of notes on this project: the riprap that we did install, this does not constitute the reconstruction of the dike. This is emergency work only, and it's meant to prevent further erosion from occurring. We're going to have to look at the Wilson Road dike and rebuilding it as part of our recovery plan for the area. So that's another step further into the process. And just a particular note about this project is we installed over 3,400 metric tons of riprap on this project, and there was an extreme shortage of riprap across the region at this time. A lot of local governments and other agencies were dealing with emergency works, and riprap was in high demand. So for this particular job, we had to look far and wide to source riprap, and some of it actually came from as far away as Laidlaw. So definitely just a suggestion that at some point somebody needs to look at some more riprap availability locally. The next job to highlight is the Osborne Road dike. So these photos on the left and right are showing the damaged dike looking upstream and downstream. Unlike the Wilson Road dike, the Osborne Road dike is actually an orphan structure. So this is one of several orphan dikes across the FERD's electoral areas, meaning that there's no diking authority that's responsible for this dike. Nobody looks after its maintenance or conducts dike inspections on an annual basis. Here's a photo of our contractor rebuilding that section of dike from that same location that we showed before. And here is an overhead photo of that same contractor working in there. And you can see kind of their progress as they're working along. On the lower left-hand side of the screen, you can see the section of bank where there's no armoring, where it's all being washed away. And finally, this is an overhead view showing, again, before and after shots of our work. The next project to highlight is the O'Byrne Road bank armoring project. This is also in Electoral Area E, just in the Plessy Park community. Show you before and after shot of that work. Next highlight is the Lorenzetta Creek Avulsion. So this is in the Laidlaw community in Area B. This particular creek, it comes down off the mountain, it hits its fan. And what had happened during the event is the creek channel had been completely plugged with sediment, and the creek jumped its bank and started flowing into this farmer's property, flooding out his farm and all of his crops. This next slide, it shows on the left, it shows what that creek channel looked like before our response work. And then on the right, after we redug out that channel and put the creek back into it. A couple of notes on this project. We faced some pretty serious fisheries challenges with it. Following the flooding, or the flooding actually coincided with the salmon run in the area. So at one point there was actually salmon spawning in that blueberry field that we showed in the previous slide. So there were numerous fish salvages that were required. And unfortunately, there was quite a bit of evidence of salmon eggs that had been buried by all the gravel that had come down. One other note with this particular project is the work that we completed here. This is a very a temporary solution. This creek channel, this whole area is built on an alluvial bed, and this creek channel is going to continue to fill in with sediment every time there's a large rainfall event. It's not a question of if, it's a question of when. So until a more permanent sediment management program can be established for this area, it's going to be an ongoing issue in the future. This is one of the homes in the Othello Road area that was damaged by the flooding. The photo on the left, you can see that the foundation was nearly washed out from underneath this home. It was left kind of perched following the flooding. Our response work here was to install some temporary shoring underneath this structure to keep it from collapsing. This home is still not inhabitable. It doesn't have any water or sewer connected to it at this point, but the structure is protected and it's not going to collapse in on itself. And finally, this is the Othello Road bank protection work. So this particular property, the house that you can see kind of at the top of the photo, is actually addressed off of Tunnels Road. But we did install a number of quite a bit of riprap along this property. You can see the steep cut bank there, and it was eroding towards that home. So we installed riprap to prevent further erosion, protect that home. In addition, we had to reestablish the connection from Tunnels Road to Othello Road because that had completely washed out with the flooding. So this next slide just shows just kind of what it looked like before and after. So some concluding thoughts on this work. I'm just going to throw a few more numbers out. In total, this work represents about $1.46 million worth of work funded through EMBC. In total, we installed approximately 8,400 metric tons of riprap and removed approximately 39,000 cubic meters of debris from the various creeks and rivers that we worked on. This represents the emergency response work, but of course there's going to be further work required as we move into recovery, in particular the Wilson Road site that I highlighted. And I'd just like to give special thanks to the rest of the EOC operations team that helped with these projects. They're not here presenting, but they definitely deserve a lot of credit for their hard work on this project.
Chair Dickey, if I might just add one further thing to Sterling's presentation, which is a follow-up right nicely into his comments about recovery. Some of you may not have had the opportunity to follow the news today, but at 12:15 this afternoon, Minister Cullen announced that the FBRD was getting $1.625 million towards recovery efforts. To be perfectly honest, we don't have a lot of details yet as to what the requirements and the use of these funds is intended for, but I know that our team certainly has plenty of uses in mind as part of the recovery plan. So some good news from the province today, and as we get the details, we'll bring them forward to the board.
Great. That's great news. Thank you, Ms. Kinnaman, and thank you, Mr. Chan. Staff have been very busy this winter. Wow, it's a lot of work. Any discussion, directors? Director Adams?
Davidson? Oh,
Yeah, thank you. I just wondered, how do people find out about their own claim? Is there contact that they can call, find out where their claim sits at this point in time? That's one question.
Through the chair to Director Adamson. As you know, the province of British Columbia administers the Disaster Financial Assistance Program. We're not able to answer questions on that, but certainly we could provide you with some contact phone numbers for
Okay, great.
folks to call. I believe that there's likely contact information on the DFA website as well, so that they can get some inquiries.
Okay.
I'm not aware of very many people throughout the valley who have heard on their claim at this time.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Director Adams, you got another?
Yeah, I go to Othello Road and watch the progress, and I just don't understand why they can't put people's land back. They're building it to protect the pipes that go there, but I don't understand why they just couldn't keep riffrafting to give those couple of people who lost everything the land back. That's all. I know we can't answer that question. It's not really a question. Yeah. And on the land gone too, are we going to do anything so that these people don't get a tax bill? They have no land, like, is that something we can take care of?
Through the chair to Director Adamson. As a matter of fact, when the event occurred, we got in touch with the Ministry of Finance because, as you know, we don't send out the tax bills. That's not our authority. We were advised that not only is it impossible for them to not receive a tax bill, we also requested that any unpaid utilities bills that rolled over from 2021 onto the 2022 tax bill, the province typically assesses interest on those rollovers. We were also advised that they would not be able to honor that request either. So I do expect that there will be a number of residents who are in this situation where they will be receiving tax bills for properties either that they cannot occupy or that doesn't even exist, and possibly further insult to injury that they're getting interest charges.
It's unfortunate.
Okay, thank you. So probably it'd be best if they took it up with the MLA and see where it went. Good, thank you, Director Adamson. Director Davidson, you had a comment?
thank you, Chair. For you to Mr. Chan, I think earlier in your presentation, you referred to response applications that were still in the pipeline. I'm wondering if you can shed any insight into what's in the pipeline, if I have that right. The context for my question is, I noticed you mentioned the Lorenzetta Creek avulsion, and I don't know if there's any service area that supports our work there, hence the response mode assistance. And I can't help but think of the Cascade Creek avulsion in my area and how there's been, no assistance. So yeah, if you have any comments on that and any sort of response mode work in the pipeline still that you haven't mentioned already.
Yeah, through the chair to Director Davidson, I'll start with the outstanding projects. So I did mention there's two projects that were outstanding. Those are both projects that we received EMBC funding for, which are not yet complete. The first is the Taylor Road Dike, which was funded, but has not been completed yet. I'm told that actually work is scheduled to start next week on that, so it should be completed shortly. The second project that was funded but is not yet complete is a section of riprap on Othello Road. That was funded, but by EMBC, but it's actually something that the Ministry of Transportation is going to be looking after as part of the recovery plan for the area. So we will likely be stepping aside and letting MOTI take care of it. To answer the second half of your question, Lorenza Creek, the version that we looked at, there was no service, or we have no service area for Lorenza Creek. So this is one where we were able to free up some, or put in an expense authorization to EMBC, and we were successful in having it funded. One of the key things that we did find putting in those requests was tying those requests to a threat to either critical infrastructure or somebody's home, or a risk to human health and safety. So in the case of Lorenza Creek, it was impacting people's homes, as well as that site is directly adjacent to the TMX pipeline. So with that rationale, EMBC felt it a worthy project to fund. Up in the Carrot Creek area, or Carrot Creek in Electoral area, as best I'm aware, there's no threats to human health, safety, critical infrastructure, or anybody's primary residence. So situation's a little bit different.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Jan.
Good, thank you, Director Davidson. Director Engar.
Thank you, Chair. Just firstly, I'd like to add my thanks to staff, engineering staff, and everybody else involved in making these orphan dikes safer, and all the work that was necessary in getting the province motivated, and ongoing issues as well. So my sincere thanks for all your efforts. It's been a job well done under difficult circumstances. Secondly, I just wanted to ask if the provincial debris map, which I'm guessing they're moving towards doing some things shortly. Is there any updates on where things are at in the Chilliwack River Valley? Have you heard any more about how the debris map is going to be addressed?
Through the chair to Director Engar, I haven't heard any updates on the Chilliwack River Valley.
Okay, thank you. And if you wouldn't mind keeping me in the loop as soon as you do, that'd be much appreciated. We have people kind of waiting with bated breath, and I'm getting the repeated questions of what's happening to this and what's happening to that. And understandably so, people are still nervous after what's taken place. So thanks.
Good, thank you, Director Engar. And if I might just interject, I was curious, Director Engar, whether you have a number of properties in the Chilliwack River Valley that, which similar to Director Adamson's concerns, that they've been seriously impacted by these events, and one would expect the assessments on their properties would be very different than they were.
Oh, yes, absolutely, Chair. That's the case. And homes that have been not even being directly impacted, but have a looming slide behind them are and termed uninhabitable. I'm assuming they shall see a big difference in their assessments as well.
Good, thank you. I remember years ago, we brought people from the assessment authority in to form a delegation to EASC, and whether we might do that again, try and address some of these issues. I'm sure next year the assessments will reflect the changes in these properties, but for this year, it sounds like it might be problematic.
I'm not privy to all the details, but I think our CAO probably has some more information on BC assessment and what they decided to do, because I understand we have sent some issues forward to them.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Kinnaman?
Yes, through the chair. I'm just wondering if Mr. Daniluz or Ms. Lonsborough want to weigh in on this one. I believe that because the event happened in November and the opportunity, the tax bills, or the tax assessments would have gone out the first part of January. We did provide that information to the various sources, as well as encouraged those affected residents to consider putting in an appeal to whatever notice they would have received. So I believe that information was shared on multiple occasions, but perhaps Mr. Daniluz or Ms. Lonsborough want to correct my memory or validate my memory.
Ms. Kinnaman, I don't mind answering that through the chair. You are correct. Property owners have the right to appeal their assessments and go through that process. They have till the end of January. However, BC Assessment did institute a special provision called BC Extreme Weather Events Property Assessment Impact. So I just pulled up the website on my screen. So there are certain criteria, and I can't read it all at the same time here, but they did make some provisions for some properties, and it was for property buildings or structures that were substantially damaged or destroyed by weather events between November 1st and December 31st. So they do have contact information on there, and I do. Yeah, anyways, it's all on their website, and I'm happy to help follow up with further information if needed.
Okay, thank you, staff, for providing that update. Director Dixon, did you have something you'd like to
Just
add?
have a comment. Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chan, for the report. And I just wanted to pass on. I don't really think I have yet. Once you finished the Frost Creek Dike, I had so many positive comments and positive feedback. People were sending me pictures of the new improved dike, and just want to pass on my thanks to you and your crew from me, but also from all those that are living along there, as well as in the Lindell Beach area. It was just a great response and a job well done. Thank you.
Good. Thank you, Director Dixon. Okay. Any other discussion? Seems not. So once again, thank you, Mr. Chan. Very nice summary for us. And thank you to yourself and all the staff for all the work that was done over this winter for us. And we'll look to Ms. Kinnaman.
Thank you. So moving to items for information and correspondence, 13.1, we have the BC Hydro news release plans to improve power reliability for Morris Valley. This is an information item, but I know that it is one that is very near and dear to Director Bales' heart.
Okay, discussion, Director Bales.
I would just like to say that the residents at Harris and Mills didn't get much recognition, and they deserve a lot. They were on it at the first break of news. The MLA got most of the recognition, but she wasn't actually hired when they started on the recognition of the item. So yeah, I'd just like to recognize the Harrison Mills community.
Good. Thank you, Director Bales. This has been an issue longstanding of incredibly complicated and lengthy power outages on that road in that area. So it's certainly great news, I'm sure, for your neighborhoods. Any other discussion? Seeing none, we will move forward.
Thank you, Chair Dickey. So just moving down to item 16, which is reports by electoral area directors.
Okay, thank you. So Director Johnson, this is when we just bring the other directors up to speed on any interesting issues that are coming up in our communities. So if you'd like to speak, maybe we'll start out with Director Engar.
Thank you, Chair. At the risk of us all breaking into a group hug, I think I'd like to thank staff again for persisting with the province on the uninhabitable termed homes in my area. I know these folks are really still up against it, and I know staff has been to press the province for solutions where they're slipping through the cracks. So thank you sincerely again, and I really appreciate us persisting from here. The second item is B&A Associates. I recently had the pleasure of walking Post Creek and Slessy Park communities with our new Fire Smart coordinator. And that was an excellent opportunity to see the communities on the ground and to see what needed to be done and to get the feedback from B&A Associates, and look forward to their reports as they come in over the next while. I'm not sure the exact timeline, but hoping to have some kind of a view of the conclusions around those two communities. They were highlighted, by the way, as being the most at risk, and that's why they were first in our community assessments. And lastly, we have an upcoming May 7th Fire Smart Day at the Thompson Park. And it's something that I think will be very well attended. I'm understanding that we're hoping that we'll have one of the rooftop sprinkler companies presenting their new and latest products at the event, and more items and giveaways and things to attract people to the event. And as we work hard to get our communities more fire smart. So that's May 7th at 2 to, I think it's 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. and there's a barbecue lunch. Thanks. Looking forward to seeing somebody there.
Thank you, Director Engar. Director Davidson. I think you're muted, Director Davidson.
Thank you, Chair. Again, thank you, staff. We had a Fire Smart session here at Hassock Prairie Hall on last weekend. And our local community halls are holding meetings again while they can, or holding events again while they can. Who knows where COVID will take us in the coming months, but right now people are out enjoying themselves while they can, I think. But other than that, not much to report. Thank you.
Good. Thank you, Director Davidson. Director Bales. Muted, I think, Director.
We had our first Harrison Mills event and that went well. And yeah, that's about all I have to report right now. So it's nice to get out and about.
Good. Thank you, Director Bales. Director Dixon.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, things are opening up again. So those of you might be around Columbia Valley Hall, there's an Easter egg hunt and Easter eggs activities going on this coming Saturday from 10 till 12. And so that's kind of fun that we can have these activities again. It was really heartwarming to see that we have students on the Cultus Lake Elementary School were part of helping the invasive weeds, the Cultus Lake Environment Committee. So some of those kids were out with their teacher the other day, snipping ivy and pulling weeds and just trying to get rid of some of those type of things in our community, which is just great to see. Campgrounds are open, so that's fun. There's lots of activities going on. And as well, one of our community, well, he grew up in Cultus Lake, Reese Howden. He was the Canadian men's ski cross at Nakiska, Alberta, just last week. So I've known Reese for many years, and he's been practicing and skiing his heart out, and it's nice to see it coming to fruition for him. So congratulations to Reese. Thank you.
Good. Thank you, Director Dixon. Director Stowart.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Well, last little while, it's again, like many other areas, it's nice to see a lot of our volunteers, community groups being able to get together and sit with each other face to face. In Desroches, we had a couple of very successful fundraisers over the last couple of weeks. Desroches Elementary released 40,000 chum fry from Inch Creek Hatchery. That's always a fun event. And this coming on the 23rd, we're having our Area G Community Fire Awareness Day at our Fire Training Center at the Desroches Hall. Other than that, the cows are content. The grass is getting green.
Great. Thank you, Director Stewart. Director Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Not really much to report, but I would like to thank all the staff of FERD, as well as the board members, for the warm welcome that I have received at this sad time. And as I step up to finish out Director Terry Raymond's term, I feel well supported. So thank you all.
Well, it's great to have you on board. Thank you, Ms. Johnson. Director Adams.
Yeah, Likewise, in Area B, everybody's happy to be outside and meeting together in person. The Tasmanian Museum opened last weekend, I think, or the weekend before, but they're open for the year now. Yale thrift stores reopened as well, so they're all excited. It's Tuesdays at 1 to 4 and Saturdays from 1 to 4 if you're going by. Some good deals. The ratepayers meeting on Monday night, they were talking about the fire assessment people in Dogwood, and everybody was excited that that was happening. We got that grant, and so everybody's happy with that. Sunshine Valley, they had a food safe on Sunday. I think there was maximum 25 people. I think they filled it, and I hear everybody passed. And they have a knitting group on Saturdays that pretty good too. I went and met with them, and they were doing all these projects for the grandkids and everybody. It's nice springtime, nice to be out there. Thanks.
Good, thank you, Director Adamson. And in the Pop and Bridle Falls area, the last week we started to see a cell tower go up. When I first came to the regional district, we were packing around cell phones the size of toaster ovens, and ever since then, complaints have been made about the poor cell reception. So if you go to the exit to Agassiz off the number 1 and look south, you'll see a 50-meter cell tower right now. So people are excited to actually be able to use their cell phones. Other than that, it's quite quiet, and I will look to Ms. Kinnaman to move forward.
Thank you, Chair Dickey. So item 17 is public question period for items relevant to the agenda, and we'll just turn things over to our corporate officer, Jamie Van Ness.
So we don't have anybody joining us in the boardroom today, and we have not received any questions by email. And we did have a member of the public joining us by Zoom earlier. However, we have nobody left on the line, so we can move on to the next item.
No public, I'm offended. Where are we in the agenda, Ms.
Well,
Kinnaman?
that means we now are on item 18, which is a resolution to close the meeting.
Okay, looking for a motion. Director Dixon, second. Director Stobart, all in favor, contrary, motion carries. Thank you. We can
Give us 2 or 3 minutes and we'll set up the room.
Good.